Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. We're in bloody Beaumont at this time. But the incident that I'm about to share with you happened before I got there. It was relayed to me by my cellie, Omar Spearman. He's been in the joint since the 90s, the mid-90s, for a crack case. They gave him, a couple of life sentences and plus a bunch of years. When I left him, he was still pending a case, pending his appeal, and God willing, I hope he gets some relief. He still might be in the SHU right now for some other shit. But while we were in the SHU in Florence, before I left, in October 2021, we got to chop it up, and he told me about this incident with the DC. Now, all of DC, they run together, but at the same time, they're broken up into different fractions. You got the southeast side, east side, west side, south side. I may not be exactly correct in all those things that I just mentioned, but my point is they're not one car. They're one car when it comes to black issues. They're one car when it comes to, they're getting into it with another car, another group, another race, another state. But amongst their own, they have division. And everybody politics on their own. So Omar was telling me on this particular day, he was in the chow hall. He went to the chow hall and he seen these two DCs politicking on the table with some other DCs sitting around, and there's one dude sitting there. And the dude that's sitting there is the guy they're politicking on. And Omar was watching him. As he's sitting there, you can just see the hopelessness in his demeanor. His head is down, he's quiet, but for whatever reason, he keeps looking up, looking at Omar. And, Omar, he's a funny dude, but he's one of the best people that you're ever gonna meet. He's from Detroit. And he's one of the people that a lot of people got respect for. On his cases, when you read his cases, there's a lot of missing persons in his case. I think that that show, The Wire, if you guys ever seen The Wire, it didn't take place in Detroit, it took place in Baltimore, but that character, Omar, was almost a pretty close adaptation of this Omar that I'm talking about. He's a very high-profile inmate, convict, and he's a G to the core, but he's a very intelligent individual. Right now, he's still fighting his case. He's got multiple life sentences and a bunch of years. And God willing, I hope they finally let him out. He's been in there 31 years now. But he's telling me this story while we were cellies in the SHU, pending his homicide investigation back in October 2021. And he said he's sitting in the kitchen, and this dude that's sitting there at the table, this other DC dude sitting at the table, just kind of kept looking up at him, kind of trying to send him some telepathic messages, just help me, but Omar's from Detroit. He don't have nothing to do with the DC politics. And outside of that, Omar wouldn't help him if he wanted to, because the dude was a rat. So these two dudes on the table, they're politicking over him. And however long the conversation went on, they got up and they left. Well, later on that day, the victim that we're discussing, he lived in DB or DA. I'm not sure which unit he lived in. Because like I said, this happened right before I got there. But as soon as I got there, it was the talk of the compound. It was one of the most vicious demonstration in bloody Beaumont. And in bloody Beaumont, you had a lot of vicious demonstrations. But this one in particular kind of shocked the administration and even a lot of the inmates. Well, these two dudes that were politicking over him didn't live in that unit. So when they called one of the moves, they slipped into the unit. Now, I don't know where the dude's cell he was. Like I said, I can't have all the details, but the dude was a rat. And they were going to get him. And if anybody's been around any DC dudes, they know when they go put in work, they're not playing with it. You know, it doesn't matter the situation. I've seen when we was in Lompoc, there was maybe 9 DCs on the compound. They got into with the Serenos, and they all knew what was going to happen. All the DCs went out to the yard. We have this weight pile area, because back then in Lompoc, you still had universal weight when I first went in there. They went to the weight pile, because the weight pile, you have to go through a fence to get into that. And they sat out there and waited the Sereno. They outnumbered, it's probably 300-400 Serenos. You know, I don't know how many exactly went at it with them, but there's 9 DC dudes. They didn't check in. They didn't go do no buster move. They sat out there and waited. And while the CEO was on the metal detector, you have all these Serenos running, setting the metal detectors off. Beep, 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 beep. Because they're not going to let no CEO stop them. You know, they're setting the metal detectors off because they all got knives on them. And they just kept running through the metal detector out to the yard to go get the DCs. And even that incident happened before I was in Lompoc. And from all the stories that I heard from all the people that related, like they held their own for as long as they could. But the point of the story that I'm telling you was they weren't running from nothing. Didn't matter the numbers. You know, I've described the DCs to you guys in prior episodes. Like, they're a different breed. And that means with honor, with griminess, with the booty bandit stuff, they're just there. But the one thing that I've learned with them, if they respect you as a man, they're going to have your back. And they're going to have your back regardless if you're white, regardless if you're Mexican, regardless if you're Asian. Because there's been a few confrontations that transpire or that was brewing, and some of the DCs I fuck with peeped it. And when they seen it, they came up to me and offered their assistance. You know, I have a lot of good friends from that area. So when I speak about the DCs, it always comes from a place of respect. But if they're grimy, I'm going to tell you they're grimy. If they're out there, you know what I mean, chasing booty, I'm going to tell you. They dip and dab in everything in the penitentiary. So in this particular incident, 2 DCs go up in D block. Like I said, it's either the DA or DB. But they go in the block and go in the cell where that rat lived. And they punished him. They stabbed him up. And they kept stabbing him up. People said they heard him screaming and hollering, but no CO was coming to help him. The guy was screaming and hollering, and then the room went dead silent. The two DC dudes left the unit. Well, apparently what happened was after they killed him, they put him on the top bunk and put a blanket over him like he was sleeping. The COs didn't hear about, the COs didn't break it up. They didn't even know what was going on. What gave it away was the blood that was dripping out of his body onto the mattress, through the mattress. You know, in our bunk beds, you have holes that go through, that's under the bunk bed. You got rows of holes under the bunk bed. And the CO later told Omar that it was just dripping off the top of the bunk onto the bottom bunk, out of his body, through the mattress, onto the bottom mattress, onto the bottom bunk. And after they did the autopsy and did a count, them two DC dudes stabbed him 117 times. That's got to be almost every part of your body. There's not going to be an inch on your body that don't have a stab wound if you got hit 117 times. You know, sometimes people say, oh, they turn him into Swiss cheese. Yeah, he got holes in him like Swiss cheese 117 times. But that's not even the crazy part of the story. You're like, what? How can somebody getting stabbed 117 times not be the crazy part of the story? Well, the story doesn't have a happy ending for anybody. You know, I mean, the rat got what he deserved, and you can say whatever you want. You can have your opinion on how I feel, but that's how I feel about these individuals. Because these individuals, they knowingly, with open eyes, go into a situation. But when the situation doesn't turn out and they're put in a box, they might be the only one that got caught for the situation. But now they want to put somebody else in their place. They might be facing life sentences, 20 years, 4 years. But these cowards don't want to do the time for the crime that they did. So instead, they put somebody else in there. So for me, I don't have no love for these individuals. I got a 26-year sentence because of individuals like that. I never got caught for nothing. When they arrested me, they hit me for 14 robberies, 12 kidnapping, and 7 attempted murder. I didn't get caught for any of them. I'm not even saying I did all of them or any of them. But you got these individuals there that ain't trying to do their time and want to tell on everybody. And when they tell, they're not telling the truth. They're making shit up to make themselves look good, or they're making shit up because that's what the prosecutor wants to hear. You know, when I talk about these rats, I'm not talking about civilians that witness you doing a crime or something. I mean, for me, motherfuckers should mind their own business, but I don't have the same animosity or hatred towards a citizen that's trying to do the right thing for the community. My issue is with the motherfucker that's sitting next to you, telling you he's down, that he's gonna ride, and that you can trust him with your life. And then when shit hit the fan, he's gonna feed you to the fire. Those are the individuals that I have issues with. You know? So when something foul happens, when something happens to them, in my heart of heart, I really do feel that's they're just deserved. Because you signed up for this. I signed up for this. When I first got arrested, they were telling me I'm getting 65 years. And that's what it is. I never thought I would come back home with all the charges they were putting on me. But no matter if it was 65 years, 10 years, or a life sentence, I know what I did. I know what I signed up for. So whatever consequences, whatever repercussion, whatever I got to deal with, I'm going to deal with it. I'm not going to throw nobody else in my spot. And now that I've been there, been in the penitentiary, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Sitting in a box for 20 plus years, it's a slow death. It takes a toll on your mentality. But there's a few of us, we take pride in being the unbroken. And no matter the situation you put us in, we're not going to break. I've been shackled, belly chain, black box for 3-4 days. Them coming to wake me up with a flashlight every hour, depriving me of sleep. You know, these are like techniques that they use on terrorists overseas. You get, your mind is discombobulated. You don't know what time of day it is. You don't know what hour. You don't know what day of the week it is. It's fucked up. But that's what it is. You know, they didn't just come and snatch me up and do it. We bucked on them in the shoe. And they came and extracted us. And this was their punishment. I've been put in a cell 14 days straight with nothing but my underwear in a freezing cell. No sheets, no beds, no clothes, no shower shoes, no toilet paper. Just sitting there in the freezing cold in a fucking cell full of metal and concrete for 14 days. You know, I didn't have to eat. I didn't just pass through the system. I was active, and with being active come consequences, comes repercussions. And every time I accepted it, dealt with it, and moved on. Well, these two individuals that stabbed this DC dude 17 times and killed him, you already know they got cased for it. So they took him back to court for murder. And while these two dudes were back at court, they both hung themselves. One rat, fucking punk ass rat, forced these individuals' hand to kill him because these individuals live by a certain code. 3 lives were destroyed because this bitch motherfucker couldn't do his time. His life, the 2 individuals that killed him, that later on killed themselves. You know, they hung themselves when they went back to court. You know, it's just, I'm not mad they killed the rat. I'm mad they hung themselves. But like I said, I'm not in anybody else's shoes but my own. So I can never speak on what goes through a person's mind, what caused them to do something like this. But a lot of us in this situation, no matter the amount of time we have, we take pride in not letting it break us. And it's sad to see that some of the people that we know and care about gets broken down. You know, again, through these episodes, I'm just trying to emphasize the chaos that happens in this world, the world behind this wall. You know, people just think that we go there and we're watching cable TV and laying up in our bed all day long. They think it's easy. But it ain't, man. You never know what's going to happen with you. You know, maybe these NDC dudes had a bunch of time already and they would have said, fuck it. But even if they didn't, because there's a lot of people that because they believe in the stuff they bought into, the time they have, the time they're doing, doesn't matter. It's principle. And sometimes living by those principles makes it a hard life for you. I understand it. Because I only got 18 years for the bank robbery. And then I got caught another 8 years because I knocked out a guard and took his keys. So all these things I'm sharing with you guys, man, is just open your eyes. Receive this information. Once you go behind that wall, there is no guarantee you coming back. Welcome to the USP. Thank you for tuning in.